Hey, Kyler here. Our aim for this show is to leverage every opportunity that life throws at us. I hope you find value in today's show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leveraged Life Show. Kord Offenbacker here, joined with my brother and pickleball partner, Kyler Offenbacker. Kyler, I have a random question for you today.
Oh, gosh.
So I think most of our viewers know that you have a background in physical therapy. Um, what would happen to my muscles if I ceased to stretch and exercise?
Cease to stretch and exercise. Well, a lot of bad things. You'd end up having a lot of injuries and stuff. Not being flexible, get weak and frail and wither away. So,
So would you say routine maintenance and exercise would be an important thing for my body, especially as I get deeper into my 30s. 'Cause I'm
I
so
think
old now.
that's the going consensus nowadays that exercise is somewhat good for you. So, yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, thanks. Now he's making fun of me, but and
Yeah,
you don't really
especially
have
getting
to.
your 30s though. You're about to be 30 this coming year,
I'm
right?
an old
So,
man.
no,
I'm
you don't
weak.
even know. Look, I'm in my mid-30s. You don't even know the pains yet. My neck's hurting today, actually. So,
I mean, you don't have to be, yes, your background, expertise, some physical therapy right there, but you don't have to be an expert. You're a professional to know that regular maintenance on things is important. I mean, think about your car. Some people, when the check engine light comes on, they just defer the maintenance because it's probably not that big of a deal. But if you prolong that and let your car sit on that, or you never exercise or go to the gym, you're going to run into longer term problems. And I think that's fair to say. And that's why we need to answer this second question in our diagnostic series. Okay, what happens if the estate plan begins to become stale and it's not routinely checked in every 3 to 5 years? I mean, think about 10 years ago, if an estate plan was written for somebody and they've amassed $2 million worth of a net worth and they've had a kid, that estate plan should probably be updated. That estate plan was actually made for a previous version of yourself that does not exist anymore. So here's the question that we need to answer today and that we need to sit with is, when was the last time your estate attorney, you sat down with a professional, actually reviewed your plan? Is it up to date? I mean, not just like a little text conversation or an email back and forth, but an actual sit down. We need to make sure this document is up to speed so that it's actually accomplishing the goals and my current that are present in my current season of life. Is it accomplishing and designed for what I need it to accomplish right now in this season, and also for my projected outcomes as well, because life is going to keep changing. An old plan is not protecting you anymore. In fact, it's protecting a version of you that no longer exists. So that's why we need to jump into this episode today.
love it. Love it. Cord, I think this is it's a pretty common sense episode, but at the same time, sometimes common sense ain't that common. So we need to make sure everybody's updating their stuff. But really, yeah, like you said, a stale plan, it's more common actually than I think people realize, because when you get an estate plan, you talk with an estate plan attorney, you're gonna draft all the things and kind of set it and forget it in some ways. But for the stuff that is really happening in people's daily lives, having babies, growing a career, building a business, you just kind of sometimes forget about this stuff, and it is really important to make sure you do keep this stuff up to date, because there are different things that change over time, that could impact your actual wishes in your estate kind of long term. And so, yeah, that's kind of the goal for today's episode. And of course, we've said this before, we are not estate planning attorneys. And so we want to make sure that that disclosure is out there. But we're going to talk a little high level about a few things that are just, like I said, kind of common sense, and why you should make sure that you update this stuff, because life changes. And really, for the bulk of what I want to talk about, Cora, is really there's three really big, pretty obvious things that would kind of warrant a conversation with your estate planning attorney to make sure that you are actually taking care of the things that need to take care of if things get changed. And so, one of them being tax laws, or not just tax laws, but just laws in general. And if you look through history, the the gift um exclusions, like the amounts, all the things like that, that stuff has changed. And so it's always ever changing. And so when I was talking to one of our estate planning attorneys the other day that we collaborate with, he literally told me, he's like, look, this stuff changes all the time. And I update my documents like every 2 months. And I was like, dang, I was like, if you're updating your stuff every 2 months, I was like, how often are you actually meeting with these people or your clients because you have that much of a kind of like white glove experience with them. So they are very taken care of course, you know. So that's one of the big things that we need to talk about, of course, is just laws changing. That's going to be one of them. The second one is, you mentioned this earlier too, Cord, is just asset values. So accumulation of assets, appreciation over time. You know, if someone's in real estate, they're investing, they're probably going to start amassing a healthy amount of real
Mhm.
estate. And with real estate, usually comes with large numbers, sometimes large debt, but a lot of times too, large asset values. So you got to make sure that if you are in real estate or if you're doing investments and you have a portfolio or, you know, different assets that are accumulating value and appreciating, then you've got to make sure that you're updating your stuff constantly, because you want to make sure that you can pass along a blessing to your family and
Mhm.
not a headache. Okay. So that's number two. Number three is family dynamics. Again, kind of common sense, but family changes. So sometimes, you know, obviously people get divorces, you know, business partners. I'll kind of group in the business aspect too, kind of like the family dynamic and business partner aspects. So business partners change. Like you get in business with somebody and it just ends up not working out, but you've written something in, you know, stone with them, and you need to make sure that this stuff is taken care of, to make sure that you are protecting your immediate family, because if
Mhm.
something happens and, you know, your family ends up being business partners with somebody that you didn't want to be business partners with, that could be problematic. And so, you know, those three things, Cord, are, you know, kind of some of the big things, obviously. But, you know, like I said, we are not estate planning attorneys. You need to go talk to your estate planner to make sure that you have the right thing specific for you and your situation.
Could you recap one more time the three different things in a bullet point format?
Yeah. So three things: laws change, accumulation, appreciation of assets, and then family or business dynamics. So I would say those three things are just some really core foundational things of why you would want to update your documents if something changes within those.
That's a helpful list too. It's like the check engine light when it comes on. You have one of those three things that pop up in your life. Maybe you're changing a life stage. Check engine light comes on. And the longer you delay in solving that problem, or the longer you delay in updating your documents, the bigger the consequences and the larger the gap is going to get. Think about it like an airplane when they take off. I mean, if the pilot is changing even 1 degree to the right or to the left, it will feel minimal at first, but it's the difference between landing in Las Vegas or Seattle, and with the longest trajectory right there, because it's just gonna keep going, right? It's gonna keep going to the point where they need to be updated. So as soon as that check engine light comes on, that's why our good estate planners we're working with, they're saying every 3 to 5 years, we should probably look into these documents and make sure they're up to speed. And I know that you're probably working with a great estate planning attorney. If you don't have one, we would happily recommend you some people that we know and trust and we know do great work. And then as we come alongside them, we are ensuring the wealth transfer plan is properly funded, properly structured, so that check engine light, when it comes on, it's an easy fix. It can become something that we take care of, and we think of it as a matter of a shepherding and a leadership principle from our perspective. You can't just drift into the best version of yourself. You can't just drift into the person you want to become. You can't just drift into the plan that you need to have. It happens intentionally. It happens by properly reviewing what needs to be reviewed when it needs to be taken care of. So, Kyler, I'll pitch it back to you. Give us a practical example of maybe how this has played out, or maybe a bad situation. I don't know, whatever comes to mind. Give us something. Give us something practical.
Yeah, well, of course, you every time we have or we talk about this stuff, we always want to give practical examples of real life scenarios. Okay, and so especially for really sometimes people that are in the spotlight because it's more well known in the public space. You see this stuff obviously happen more in the private sector, but there are celebrities, there's artists, there's professional athletes that deal with this kind of stuff. And so, one of the people that I found that we could talk about is Aretha Franklin. And so obviously a well-known example when it comes to not having her documents basically updated over time with, up-to-date wishes, things like that. Long story short, like you said, you can go Google this, had multiple wills, handwritten stuff, kind of stuffed down in some couch cushions. And it's
Oh,
like,
no.
when she passed, it's like, family had to work through all this stuff. And it's like, what document is supposed to be kind of like at the top here, because there were some things that were conflicting on wishes. And so those are just examples of like why you need to have of course your core estate planning stuff down cold, but then you've got to update this stuff to make sure that it's keeping up with your life, because if you're not, it's just going to create a headache for your family down the road. And so we don't want that for anybody. But Aretha Franklin is a pretty good example of that, of just not updating this stuff over time. And like you said earlier, the gap. I actually really like that kind of analogy of like the 1 degree off. It's just going to keep drifting and drifting and drifting, and that's a real thing that happens. But you don't really recognize at the time. And maybe for her, I don't know obviously what she was thinking, but maybe as life was going along, she's like, yeah, I like this. Let's put this down, whatever, and just like writing things out and not putting any consideration with obviously what had been done in the past, and really obviously not knowing that it would create a headache like this. But nonetheless, it created years long worth of legal battles and court stuff. And
Mhm.
so, like I said, you just don't want to, pass along a headache to your family down the road. It's just not going to be good for anybody involved.
That's where your action step comes in from today's episode. Save yourself a headache. Have the good conversation today. Save yourself a headache and have the right conversations today. Call up your estate planner, and I want you to ask 3 questions. Whoever you know, whoever you trust. If you don't have one, give us a call or text show to 479-396-3528, and we will recommend some people to you that we know and trust and that can help you walk through the different facets of your life and what needs to show up legally on paper. But ask them one of these 3 questions or all three after you book that meeting. Not a text call, just a text message, not just a phone call, not just an email. Sit down with them in person if you can and ask these 3 questions. Has my plan become outdated? Has my plan become outdated? Are my beneficiary designations still up to date? If they're not up to date, think about if you have 3 children, but you never updated it after your second child, that poor third kid, they're probably not getting anything. You need to make sure those beneficiary designations are up to date. And then the third question, does my current coverage still match my current exposure? That might be a conversation for you, your CPA, us, and your estate planning attorney to make sure the right liquidity is necessary for your estate. So there's your 3 questions in your action step. Call up your estate planner and get that meeting on the calendar and ask if your stuff is out of date. Ask if your beneficiary designations are up to date, everything's up to standard, and if your current coverage is matching your current exposure. And the good news is there are options. So start the conversation today and make sure that you are not drifting even 1 or 2 degrees away from the goals and the objectives that you need to meet in order to pass off the wealth you have built to your children and to your heirs. Because that's what we're all about at the Leverage Life Show. We want to leverage every opportunity that comes our way and make sure you can transfer your wealth to your family. That concludes our second episode of the Diagnostic. These are 8 questions every wealth transfer plan needs to be able to answer. Join us next week, and we will see you next time.